Hello and welcome to That Squirrel Speaks. Today is Tuesday, September 12th, and this is episode 202? Maybe 3. I'm not sure. Hi. I'm your hostess, Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. If you would like to support the podcast, you can do so by either clicking on the Donate Now buttons on my website, which is thefatsquirrel.com. If you're on a regular, table-y, PCE, non-mobile device. If you're on a non-mobile device, that's how I should say it. You can find that button to the right. If you're on a mobile device, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll find that button at the bottom of the page. You can also support the podcast by donating's not the right word. You can support the podcast at Patreon. And I'll put the link in the show notes. Shameless self-promotion is hard, yo. Especially before 10 a.m. It's a rough one. While we're speaking of shameless self-promotion, and we've already just said those things, what I do is every quarter I offer 3 prizes to folks who have contributed financially in one of those 2 locales. So I'm not sure exactly when Patreon will give my report, but my intention is to do the prize drawings the first podcast of the new quarter. So for example, this quarter is July, August, September, so I would offer the prizes the first podcast in October. I'm not sure when they generate their report, so I don't, because it's new. But I will draw them as soon as I can. How's that? One prize will be a color affection that I recently completed. What? It's made with hazelnuts and homespun house and the beautiful marigold. No, this is not marigold gem. Marigold gem is beautiful. But this happens to be Madeline Tosh, the yellow. Womp. So that'll be one prize. And then I will offer 2 of the 2018 linen tea towels with the sweaters on them that I showed you last time. See, it's color affection, y'all. What? You can affect color. So yay, that. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So there will be shenanigans. There'll be from the boards. I will try to be more concise this time. I actually wrote everything down, hoping that I can condense. As awesome it is to read from you exactly what you wrote on the boards, it does consume time, and period. I try to keep the podcast under an hour if I can do. I do my best to do so, just because it creates larger data files, and y'all have things to do, right? Y'all got lots of things to do. Speaking of larger data files, thanks to the folks who have contributed to the podcast either through PayPal or Patreon via PayPal. I will be uploading a better quality file, so I will actually up the data amount of file for YouTube. iTunes won't let me. My provider has a very specific cap on how much data I can give them. But yeah, yay. So I'll be going to the libraries. Hopefully the theory is that I'll go to the libraries on Wednesday morning to do that, because my internet is wicked slow. It's 3 to 4 hours to download a podcast or upload the podcast at my house, and it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the library. Really? Sorry, that was a loud car that just drove by. So this week's will contain shenanigans. It will contain from the boards. It doesn't have any spinning. I did finish some spinning. Well, I finished some singles, but I didn't finish playing, so they're still on the bobbins. And it will contain some knitting, yo. There's actually quite a bit. I should have looked at this before I sat down, because I can't quite reach all of it. Right. from the boards, from the boards, in case you like to skip that bit or because you read the boards or whatever, it will also contain a little bit of information about zippers. So if you're interested in that, kind of speed through but look for a zipper. It'll be yellow, so it'll be real easy to see. Okay. Sorry, just bringing my ironing board table over closer to my vicinity. Shenanigans. Oh my gosh, yo! Was it just last time or was it time before last? I guess it was time before last because I didn't read any cider thing. Okay, yes, time before last. I was all like, cider club! Dude, cider club totally happened. Kind of. Pretty much. Dry run style. What? Joanna, who is Knitspin Farm and her husbandy type person, totally made cider equipment at their farm. They like made cider equipment. They didn't go buy highfalutin fancy cider equipment. They engineered and made even more awesome cider equipment. And they were like, would you like to participate in our dry run? And I was like, of course. Sign me up. Times 100. So I totally got to do that. What is that about? It's like My Life is the Secret. That's that book. Remember, that's like you should put out what you want and it'll come to you. I gotta work on it. That was me sending vibes to the universe that I would totally dig being independently wealthy. Just in case. Right? What is that about? So, this is the best part. Okay, so before that, I had actually been looking at how to like make my own cider equipment, but I hadn't gone deep into it. I was just looking at YouTube videos. And so I was like looking at this video about a dude who was making his masher and smoosher. That's not what they're called. His apple crusher and his press out of like a ceiling fan motor and like some garbage cans with like holes drilled in them. And I was like, maybe I could do that. I probably could do that. And then I got all twisted up. Dude, guess what the secret is? You use a garbage disposal, a new one, simmer down with your judgy pants. Use a brand new not fancy, but a brand new garbage disposal, and you set it in a tabletop that you're going to chop your apples on. This is how you chop apples, by the way, if you didn't know. That's how you chop apples. So you chop the apples on them, and then you slide them to the... I did not think of this system at all, but I am excited. I love efficiency in a deep, dark, secret way. Like, I feel like I could probably, like, I am really anti-corporate America, but I feel like I could maybe be that terrible efficiency expert that comes to the factory and is like, you're all fired. I feel like I could be that person. That's like my shadow self. Because I really dig efficiency. It's amazing and interesting and fascinating. Anyway, Billy used fancy words like throughputs and something else. I've been out of corporate America long enough that I don't even know what those words mean. But it's essentially efficiency. Gussied up. So you like this so that you could just scoot the apples down to my daughter, who was the garbage master, the garbage master. Did I say that? I think I did. Garbage disposal master. So you put the apples in the garbage disposal and it crushes them like magic. Okay, I don't want to say like magic because she did have to use force to like not putting her hand in the garbage disposal. They had thought of that. They made like a fancy tool that she could push them out of there with. That was called the persuader stick. So she would push them down in there and they would shoot out the bottom, and we'd have like a plastic container, like a big one, like, you know, the storage ones that you use, the Cambrays, whatever. I always forget what those are called. I probably said the wrong word, whatever. The food usable ones. You put that in it and it shoots all the apple mush into there. It's amazing. It was very exciting. So then you take that and you go over to like the apple press, which is made with like this platform and a bottle jack, a hydraulic bottle jack that you can just use by hand. The garbage disposal, of course, is electricity. But the bottle jack you just use by hand. I didn't know that. I thought it was gonna all be electric. I didn't know. So then you put the apples in the cheesecloth or whatever you're gonna use to keep the apple pulp out of the apple juice. And then you stack them up and then you make the apple cheeses like they do. Sorry, I'm dropping things. And then you use the hydraulic press to press them all out. And then there's like he made like a hose that came out of the bed of the thing. And then it just, what? It was awesome. It was amazing and awesome. It was an excellent trial run. And by the way, like when it's trial run, it involved like 48 gallons worth of apples. I don't know how many gallons are in a bushel. I can't help it. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know my English matrices. That's not a word for that. By the way, you do know that everything I say I just make up. I don't know anything. You should never trust me. Like legit. I mean, I would not intentionally lie to you, but sometimes I just think things and I forget to tell you that's just what I think and not like well-researched fact. But, and I say it with confidence, so sometimes you believe me, I think. I'm a liar who lies. Don't listen to anything I say. Apologize. It's just my personality to just say my thoughts like that they're facts, and I forget that sometimes people don't. I'm kind of a dude. Just remember, I'm kind of a dude. Just saying. I don't like that about myself. But it is inherently who I am, and I try to temper it, but okay. So and I will always say that I was wrong, by the way. Well, not always. But if it's provable that I was wrong, I will always say that I was wrong. If it's subjective, I might not ever admit that I was wrong. But if it's objective, I will happily admit that I was wrong. What are we talking about? How many gallons are in a bushel? Gosh, guys, why'd you get me so sidetracked? Jeez, I'm trying to do a podcast here. Okay, so approximately 9 gallons. Okay, so we made 48 gallons-ish. Okay, so 48 gallons, it's actually, what did I say it was? Cancel, 9.309. This is all approximate. Okay, so we did about 5 bushels of apples, yo. Okay, a bushel of apples weighs about 50-ish pounds. It's like 250 pounds of apples. Trial run, dry run, just to see if it works. So awesome. I mean, not just to see it works, we're using the cider that was made. I'm just saying, like, the next run will be bigger. With later fall apples. Right. So anyway, out of approximately 250 pounds, that's not right. Maybe. This is all estimates. But it's really pretty fun. So anyway, so we did that. We made the cider. I have a giant bucket of cider in my kitchen that is currently settling so that I can siphon off. Because one of the cheeses broke while we were working. And that was, again, it was a practice time. So I need to let that settle really well and then siphon off and start to ferment. So exciting. Yay! So anyway, so fun. And then, okay, so they're like, yeah, come, we have all these apples that we've gathered. Like, you just have to give us, like, maybe an hour's worth of really, like, doing something. Okay, it's actually maybe 2 hours worth of doing something. Apparently my going rate is like $700 an hour. Because I think I got at least $1,400 worth of awesome out of it. Just saying. I need to up my price for bags. Because not only did I get to come away with cider, I also got to consume pizza. I got to pet some goats. The lambs did not let me pet them. My kid got to run around and be crazy and probably mess something up. I'm sorry. I got my Fiber Club shipment early. Shut up. All the things. It's amazing. I feel like there was even more awesomeness. A sugar pie, of course. It's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about it because it was so ridiculous. There's a fine line between like just being grateful to the universe and being ridiculous, and I don't always know where that line is. In either direction too. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm too close to that line, and clearly I was nowhere near that line, and I'm under-grateful. But, you know, we're all human and imperfect. Some of us more than others. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's talk about stuff. Don't ask me about cider. I mean, you can ask me about cider. I don't know anything about it. I have some library books. It seems like it's pretty basic what you have to do. But I am not an expert. There will be no tutorial. I do plenty of other tutorials of things I'm not experts on, which I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes. Okay, let's do from the boards. Oh, also, okay, spoiler alert. Since I got my Fiber Club shipment early, I was waiting to show you them all at once. Joanna Spring, who's Knit Spin Farm, did a 3-month fiber subscription club. It was about unicorniness. So I have the last one early. You may not have yours yet. You probably don't. So don't look if you don't want to be spoiled. But if you do want to be spoiled, you're already spoiled because you got the subscription. And it's a spoily thing. It's so spoiled and wonderful. So this, are you ready? So there were also so many cute goodies. I won't even tell you about it. There were postcards with unicorn lambs. There was a crazy stitch marker of awesomeness that I won't show you that came in the last one. There are stories with every shipment. Just saying. This is totally not going to translate. But this was the first bat, yo. What? Do you see all that silk in it? Do you see like how minty and like not fake mint, but beautiful actual natural mint that you would put in your iced tea and it'd make everything good? Do you see it? This is the lights burning it out. Oh, it's not good. It's sparkly and 100% awesome. So there was that. And ginger, I can't get it in the back. It's so beautiful and yet delicate. And then there were rainbow batlings. What? Right. Shut up. Because you know, hi, we do a unicorn subscription. And then this last one, I don't even like purple as I wear a purple shirt. But you know, like some people will murder you for purple things. I'm not naming names. And by the way, they smell so sheepy and good. By the way, I totally love in our community that smelling sheepy is always a positive thing. I love that about our community. Oh my god. That's just the inside. So one of the reasons I showed you these is because A, they're awesome. By the way, this subscription was gifted to me by a mostly amazing human being. That's not what I meant. A most amazing human being. I don't know why I said Lee. That made me sound like a jerk. A most amazing human being whose face is made of generosity. What is that? But then Joanna, in this last one, she did not solicit. She did not tell me that this was happening. Just found out. She's gonna do another one. But this time, it's wool noir, you guys. Are you kidding me? Core of the sheep. PI. It's amazing. Okay. Now let's talk about from the boards. From the boards. Okay. So this is going to be lots about like canning and zippers. I think that's pretty much the gist of it. So let me see if I'm in the right place. I am. Oh, Knitting Rosarian, thank you so much. She piped in right off the bat with the difference between apple juice and apple cider. Pectin. Apple juice does not contain pectin and apple cider does. Thanks. That's helpful information. So that probably explains why that's an older differentiation. Everything used to be cider. Or maybe, I shouldn't say that. Never mind. Erase it from the record. Moving on. Deep Blue Renegade totally asked about the More with Less cookbook. And she asked what recipes I use from it. I have a complicated relationship with this cookbook. Okay? I recommend that anybody in the world check this out from the library. Because I feel like when I bought this book, or it was given to me, I can't even remember now. It's been a while ago. I mean, I feel like it's been maybe 7 years ago. And when I purchased it, it had such a different approach to food economy than I had ever thought of before. It is written by a woman of the Mennonite faith. And it is actually commissioned by the Mennonite Central Committee. So it is funded by the Mennonite Church. And she just had Okay, hopefully everybody will settle down now. FedEx man's not even at my house. Anyway. So, More with Less. I feel like I have a really complicated relationship with this book because specifically Deep Blue Renegade asked what recipes I use most from this book. I don't know. I mean, I have definitely made some of the bread recipes, but I don't know that I have made, I think I have made some recipes from the book, but for example, like the condition of the pages are not well used. So clearly I know that I have not made anything from it from recent memory. I'm just saying. Like my America's Test Kitchen Cookbook looks like it's been through the wars. Do you know what I mean? Like the page, like it's a mess. So this is far too pristine to indicate that it has been next to the stove that long. There's some sticky pages in the bread section, which is why I know that I've used some of the bread recipes. But primarily, I think that this was just such a revolutionary, to me, idea when I first purchased it. Again, when it first came into my life, about economy of food, not for one's own financial gain, but for the sake of consuming less so that others can have more to consume. Does that make sense? And I know that is far more complicated than that. Please do not think that that reductionary statement, I think, applies and like suddenly if I eat less food that the person, 4 cities from me who doesn't have access to the grocery store is magically going to have food. That, I understand that statement is reductionist. But the principle, the energy you put out isn't, I think. Does that make sense? So I just never thought about food economy in that way before. So it was just a very interesting book. Like not only the recipes are of interest, but I feel like the additional information, the appendices, the introductory chapters are very helpful. It also is a great book in terms of it talks about grams of protein per pound for products, and then cost of those. In terms of like consumer costs, this is not like, again, we understand that all meats and animal proteins are all of our food is heavily subsidized. So we will not know as in-line consumers what the price of those products really is unless we are buying things like grass-fed meats and directly from the producers of those items Because those are the people who are not receiving the subsidies that large corporations, large agricultural corporations are receiving. And this is now sounding like I'm trying to be very political. Oh well. Moving on. But it talks about, eating with joy. Talks about like consumption of breads and like what does that do to my body, and like all these things that are just so interesting to me. And then it actually has recipes. One of the other things I thought was very helpful that I have used more so than the actual recipes in this book, at the end of each section, so like on the end of the bread chapter, the end of the legumes chapter, there is a gather up the fragments section. And it talks about how to use what you have left over. So it talks, they give you recipes for using up stale bread. They tells you, gives you hints about using up those products that you've not, necessarily used all the way up. The other thing that I found very helpful when I first got this book was the sections on grains, because I had not used lentils. I had not used beans in very many different ways at that time. So I think this book is still relevant. Do I think if today, do I think I would buy it or if I would check it out from the library? I think I would check it out from the library. I think that's what I would do. Because I don't use it for reference a lot at this point. I kind of like it, to be honest. This is counter to what the book is all about, but I've never gotten rid of it. Like, I've purged lots and lots of stuff. I've never purged it because I feel like its little orange self on my bookshelf just brings me to a touch point every once in a while, which I find to be helpful. So I've never gotten rid of it. And I don't know, I feel like I do have a love for it, but it is not necessarily for the recipes. I do think one of the things that's really great about it, it is very pantry driven. So if you are a person who is not good at using your pantry, who doesn't have a lot of and you're perhaps a person who has a smaller selection of odd things in your pantry. Like, my pantry contains some stuff that other people's don't. Like, I have a vegetarian friend who's single, so she's not cooking. She's, that's a very complicated thing to cook for oneself but whatever. She comes to my house, she'll come to my house with the recipe, like, can we make this here? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you have all these spices? I'm like, yeah, that's important to me. And so I've invested in those things over time. But I think this is great for somebody who maybe hasn't invested in those things over time, because no recipe has like 20 spices in it. I think that nothing is going to have cardamom in it. Not that cardamom is a bad thing, but you know what I mean? It's not going to have, it has more basic ingredients. So I think it's helpful in that way. But yes, I really haven't used the recipes that much. I feel like I've used it more for inspiration, just flipping through like, oh, well, I never thought about doing stir-fried bean sprouts. That's just what I turned to. I have thought about doing stir-fried bean sprouts, and I have done them. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's helpful. So that's what I think about that. So, in short, I don't have favorite recipes from this book. I find it a good source of general inspiration. I find it to be a good touch point to just check in with every once in a while. I probably will hold on to it forever. So anyways, that's More with Less by Doris Janzen Longacre. Check it out from the library if you're interested in that sort of thing. Okay. So now let's talk about more from the boards. We're still on from the boards. We're just like all over the place. I love it. Yay. Huckman asks, I get this question actually several times. So how are these yarns sorted? They're not. They just get put in there and then taken out and then put back. Sometimes they are together just by like what I've decided to play with for a while. And like what I plan to keep together in a combination, but there is no organization. And you're not the only person to have asked. Okay, Choke Cherry 45. she talks about, this is another good point of like, I'm not judging. She talks about sterilizing jars when she's canning and how she always sterilizes jars. And like I talked a little bit, about like, I'm just fascinated with how different cultures view food preservation and like the processes to do that. Again, I'm wrong about everything. Just assume. I am not in any way saying that nobody should sterilize jars. I've put jars in the, like if I'm doing a hot water bath can, I've put jars in the thing, the boiling water, what's it called? I don't do it very often because quite frankly, we have such hard water that clouds up my glasses. But I mean, I wash jars. It's not like I'm just like, yeah, dip that in the rain bucket outside that has algae on it and then use it for canning. No, and I don't think anybody's foolish for sterilizing anything. Now, so I won't roll my eyes at you if you sterilize your jars. I come from jar sterilizers. I just think it's interesting that we have such different approaches to canning and food preservation. They're not that different. They're just different, So I find that fascinating. What else was I going to say? I can't remember. There was something else I was going to say about that. Oh, so I don't roll my eyes at anybody who decides to either sterilize or not sterilize or, wash your hands. I do judge you if you're canning foods and you don't wash your hands. But I will roll my eyes at you if, for example, you purchase an autoclave, especially just for doing your jars. Okay, I would roll my eyes at you. But I would never like point you out in public as the autoclave jar lady and mock you openly. I just be like, ooh, that's a little intense. That's what my reaction would be. So I'm not judging. And maybe that's me reading maybe that's me projecting my own stuff onto you when I read your comment. But if it's, then that's it, then you can just ignore what I'm saying. But if it's not, I'm not judging. I just think it's interesting. Okay, so what else did I want to say? Oh, I did think she said it was really, really cute. She said, if your jam gets mold if your jam gets mold in the jars in the refrigerator, you are not eating it fast enough, or you need to make smaller jars. I'm going to go with you. We're not eating it fast enough. Eat more jam. Eat more bread. Move on. And then Green Eye piped in later in the thread about sterilizing jars in the oven, and then there was kind of like a little bit of back and forth between some folks. And a good way, not in like a wee way, like a ooh. But there are some folks who sterilize I think Ball, I don't remember exactly what their specifications are, but I think they say wash them in hot soapy water. And then I think they do want you to put your jars in boiling water. Again, if you're doing a hot water bath, it's just easy to put them in there. Not your lids. Because your lids, if they get to that temperature, the seal will not work well when you try to reseal them. Essentially, you will be resealing them. But like, sometimes people just put them in the dishwasher, and that gets them hot so that they're clean, and then they're hot and ready to accept jam. Some people want them to be in the boiling water, so that when you put the jam in them, they don't break. But yeah, like huge changes in temperature can weaken a jar and make it break. So that's one reason that they want you to have hot jars. Hot jars! But you all knew that, and I'm just saying things so I'll stop now. Oh, but so Green Eye, and so then a couple other people chimed in about sterilizing jars in the oven, which I had never heard of. But one person said that their mother, actually I think it was Choke Cherry, said that her mother would put them in like a shallow, like a 9x13 pan, and she would put water in that and then put her jars on top of it and put it in the oven until the water was hot enough to be pulled up into the jars. And some people just put them in a dry oven, from what I could tell, probably just again to heat them gradually so that they would accept jam more. And again, in combo with sterilizing to some extent. Anyway, it's just interesting. Okay, moving on. Oh, Katie Kitty J asked about trimming zippers. Yes, you can trim zippers, yo. Trim them all up. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can, if you order your zipper through Zipper Stop, which is where I get a lot of my actual like garment zippers, not my bag zippers, but my garment zippers, because they have a pretty wide selection. You can get custom colors if you want, not custom colors, but they have a huge selection of colors, and they will even make the zipper that you want specifically, like if they don't offer it as a stock item, I guess is a better way to say that. They will also trim your zippers and make them a finished zipper to whatever, well, I shouldn't say whatever, but to pretty much whatever length you want. It just takes a few extra days, and I think it costs like $1. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a lot. But if you're just like getting a zipper at Joann's or your local fabric store, you can cut a zipper to any length you would like to do it. You can purchase special zipper stops, which are like the little metal bits on the ends, and that you could clamp them down. And I apologize, somebody told us that. Skitcher told us that, and she has a good explanation about how to use those. I've never used them because I don't have that much forethought. But this is how you trim a zipper down. Again, this is not a tutorial. This just is like a basic thing. This is a sample that I used, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. This is a sample I made, excuse me. So this is a zipper. You got it in. I don't ever trim the zipper until it's in the garment, and I've tried it on, and I'm like okay with it. I say that, but I've already done it, and I'll show you in a minute. But it's okay. But ideally, you want to get that zipper into your garment, leave these things flapping around at the end, try it on, make sure it is A-okay before you trim it. That way, if you need to reposition it, you can do so. But all you need to do to trim a zipper is, you can use wire cutters. Because of what I do, I trim zippers all the time. So I have like my less than great zipper, or well, less than great scissors. So you could use like your kitchen scissors. Okay, maybe not. So you just be like, you're gonna get salmonella on your neck. I don't know. I would do it. I don't recommend you do, I guess. Take some cruddy scissors. If you don't want to use if you don't want to use scissors and you don't have cruddy ones, if you don't have cruddy scissors, you're living a life. But anyway, you can use a wire cutter to cut the zipper thing. But you just decide what length you want to leave, like an extra inch. So like say my zipper is sewn in and it's like ending here. You want to leave like an extra 3/4 of an inch, at least a half an inch, I would say. So say again, it's ending right here. You just give yourself some extra, right? Now, if you want it to end right there, what you're going to do is take a better scissor. You're going to trim off the teeth. Do you see what I did? I just cut right along there. I'm just trimming off the teeth. Again, you can take your wire cutter, or you could just take your cruddy zipper scissors. That's all you gotta do. Make sure, I apologize, just said this. Make sure the zipper part is down. Whatever this is called, I don't know. Make sure the zippy zip part is not above where you're cutting, because that will make you cry. Okay, so now if you have one of those fancy zipper stop things, you can clamp it on here just using like a needle nose plier or whatever. But if you don't, you're okay. You're just gonna fold this tape down. That's all right. So something like that. Just tack it into place. And then just use either sewing thread. It's nice to use embroidery floss if you can get it to match. Because there are a million colors of embroidery floss, they're always gonna match. B, it's a thicker thread, so you don't have to do as many loops. But you can just take your needle and thread. I usually go 2 tines down and just sew a loop over and over and over that tine. So I leave at least one blank tine above it, because again, that'll hold your stitches down so they won't slide off the end of the tape. And you can either do a cross stitch where you involve 2 tines and just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Or you can just whip it around one edge. Now, if you're doing a zipper for like a wild child, you might want to invest in one of those stops. Or you can put, like a silly thing like a button or something on the top that will be like an actual physical stop, or a bead or anything. A bead would be maybe the best. You could sew a bead there so that the definitely could not get past it. But for like any kind of I've never had trouble with any of Tova's zippers or my husband's zippers, and he's kind of an animal, so this is what it'll look like. I'm so close to you. See that? Let's see. Focus. So see, this one I didn't even use a matching thread because I did not care then. And I just sewed across that. And that's what it looks like on the wrong side. I just have, you can see that that's folded down. This sweater is pre-podcast, so it's at least 6 years old. I mean, I haven't been doing the podcast for that long, but the sweater is also at least 6 years old, and never had a problem with it. So there you go. You just do it on both sides, obviously. That's how you trim a zipper. Ba-bow. Okay. Okay. So moving on. So that is a great question, Kitty J. Anyway. Next one. Angel Gum 3. Oh, she said a sad thing about all of the apple orchards where she lives in northern Illinois. I think she said Illinois. Maybe she said Iowa. I'm not sure. Have all turned into houses. I know, right? It's really hard for small-scale agricultural producer, Joe. We don't have a lot of dollars, so I am not, like, whatever. Again, I'm not judging. You do whatever you need to do. But if you do have a desire to not have like 3 agricultural companies running everything. I know there's not 3, that's an over exaggeration. But you know what I mean? Like if you would like agriculture to be in the hands of people who have chosen it as a profession and not a profit-making device, if we can support more small-scale agricultural producers, I think we'll be happier. Again, I know we all have troubles. I get it. Like we all have different financial situations and different priorities, and it's a struggle for me because I live in a household where the other financial contributor to the household does not have the same priorities that I have in terms of small scale agriculture. So I get it. It's hard. It's so complicated, but it's sad, especially things like apples. Which are so magical. Like, I don't know that I would feel super magical in like a field of corn or soybeans or lots of fields I think I would feel magical in. But you know what I mean? Like an apple orchard is a different level of magical. Like I have a serious affinity for apple orchards. Like if I had some sort of patron goddess, it would have to be an apple one because I do feel very energized and at peace in those orchards. So it seems even more important. Also, you can't just plant an apple tree one year and then get a serviceable crop the next. So it even seems like it's more important to keep them around. I don't know. Things I don't know, things I just say. I'm just sorry. Moving on. Oh, and she also recommended the Townsend YouTuber. So if you're a YouTube folk, you like to watch the YouTubes, there's a channel called Townsend. So TOWNSEND. He does lots of brief, so they're like 15 minutes or less. I think he tries to do primarily 17th, 18th, 19th century topics in terms of like how things would have been done in a specific period. So there's an episode on mead. There's an episode on, there's blacksmithing episodes. There's all sorts of different episodes. Some of them he does in conjunction with Williamsburg. So he has, I have not watched a bunch of them. I watched a few, but there are a ton of them out there. So if you like that kind of stuff, you might want to check him out. Nellie Fenwick also recommends a book called Living on a Little by Caroline Burton. I can't read my own handwriting. But it's available at Gutenberg.org, and I'm assuming that is, again, aligned with our like more is less and things like that. So I just wanted to put that out there if you hadn't had a chance to check out the Ravelry group. And Rubberhead88 also recommends Melissa Norris for canning. So melissanorris.com. I'll try to remember to put that in the show notes. But it is Melissa, Melissa Knorris. I hope I said that just right. But I will try to put that in. I have not actually checked that out. But again, I wanted to pass it along for any of you who might need that information. Okay. Sewing Cindy asks about fixing a split stitch. I didn't think to remember to bring anything. To fix a split stitch, like if you have it like further down in your work or you finish something and you notice that it's split, in all likelihood, it won't hurt anything. You'll probably be the only person who'll notice it, but it is a weak spot in your knitting, and it is, especially if it's on like an elbow or someplace that's going to get a lot of wear, it might not be a bad idea to fix it while you can. You can always fix it, but fix it before it becomes a snag or a hole or anything like that. And really, I fix it the same way I fix a drop stitch. I just take a length of yarn, the same yarn I've used in my project, and I basically kind of do like a duplicate stitch. So I just weave in, 3 or 4 stitches, and I might do like the split stitch and then one on either side, do a duplicate stitch over them, and when I'm doing this one that's split, I will catch the whole stitch in that, and just do that. Does that make sense? So again, if you want more detailed instructions, you could probably just Google or look up how to fix a drop stitch or something like that. But that's how I do mine. There might be a better way. I don't know. But that's how I fix a split stitch if I'm going to. I have a cardigan upstairs. Shame moment. I have a cardigan upstairs that is knit from a 2-ply yarn that was very loosely plied. And I made it before I even thought about split stitches being a problem. And it's been in recent memory. It's only like, it is post-podcast. It is during the podcast. But I look at it now and I'm like, why did I think that would be an issue? There's like 40 split stitches, at least 40 split stitches in this sweater. And I know that I should, and it's a steeked cardigan, because I would actually just normally just rip it. I would not rip it out for that reason, but it's not a cardigan that I love the wear of, the fit of anyway. Or not, it's not the fit, it's just, I don't like how it wears so much. It doesn't feel right on my body. But I've even thought about repurposing the yarn, and I'm like, it's steeked, I can't even rip it out. But there are like literally, there's got to be at least 40 split stitches in it. And what I need to do is just do it. Just need to sit down one night. It probably would only take me a night, maybe a night and a half to do them all. But I just haven't been that inspired. So that's all you do. Or at least that's all I do. Crafty Vegan wrote in and talked about, she specifically said when they make cider, they don't use special cider apples. Nobody, when they make sweet cider, so the cider that is not fermented, the cider you buy at the grocery or that you don't have to show an ID to purchase. Nobody worries about cider apples for that cider. Cider apples specifically are for fermenting cider. So we all have our Johnny Appleseed, right? All of our American folks have our Johnny Appleseed, and he sowed seeds through America through past the Appalachians into Ohio and things like that. He's a folk hero for sowing. Those were all cider apples, though, because again, when you sow an apple seed, you have no idea what apple tree you're going to get, and I think like 99% of them are not edible right out. They're spitters. You bite into them, you go, whoa! You spit it out. So it's that intense. A lot of them are very astringent. They can be very bitter. There's lots of different crazy profiles that can happen, but so they're used for cider, for hard cider, specifically. Because what can happen is, actually, I found this very interesting. So it's the sugars, right? It's the sugars in the apple that the yeast needs to eat to make alcohol. Okay? I sound like such a lush, but I'm really not. I don't drink very often at all. If I did, whatever. Don't judge me, whatever. Moving on. It's the sugars that the yeast consume. Okay? So in our normal, like Golden Delicious apple that is very sweet, it actually has less sugar in it than a lot of apples that are called bitter tarts, or like a lot of hard cider apples, because the Golden Delicious just doesn't have the other tannins and other chemical flavor profiles that mask the sugar flavor. So actually, a lot of those cider apples or again, a lot of those apples that you buy in that are spitters that are just, whoa, make you feel like your mouth's turned inside out, they actually technically have more sugar in them. You just can't taste it because those other profiles of flavor are so strong. So that's what makes them good for fermenting, because they have more sugar for that yeast to eat and can produce a higher alcohol content, if that's what you want. Because we're not messing around. So that's interesting, I thought. So your sweet apples, like if you made an apple cider out of Golden Delicious and you wanted to ferment it, it would have a much lower natural alcohol content than it would be if you use some of these more astringent apples. And again, it's not universally true that all of those have more sugar, but it's generally true. Fascinating, right? Also, Crafty Vegan. Oh, because she talked about the crux, right? I like cider. The cider at my orchard that's down the street, the city orchard, is $8 a gallon. I haven't priced cider at the grocery store, but I'm guessing it's $2 to $3 a gallon, probably, right? Maybe it's $4, because that's actually not a whole gallon that you purchase. So the price is insanely different, right? It's hard. Some people will swear by the cider that's at their orchard, because if you would like to purchase unpasteurized cider, you cannot purchase that at a grocery store. Federal regulations indicate, and I think this does vary state by state, but in general, if you want to purchase unpasteurized cider, I think some states don't even let you purchase it at all. But if you would like to purchase unpasteurized cider, it has to be from the source. So you would have to go to your local orchard to purchase that. A lot of people swear by unpasteurized cider versus pasteurized. I kind of do too. It has a lot more complicated flavor profile, because to pasteurize the cider, usually you use heat, which can break a lot of those flavors down. UV light is another way. It's called cold pasteurization, that people use to pasteurize the cider. It is also another reason that we typically do not recommend very young children, very old folks, or anybody who is immunocompromised to drink unpasteurized cider, because there is the possibility for there to be a stray critter in there, and by that I mean microorganism, that could wreak havoc on you. So that is, unpasteurized cider does come with a very, very, very small risk. But certainly, if you're immunocompromised, or if you have any sort of GI flora issues, that's probably not a best choice for you. I'm not a doctor. I'm a liar who lies. Just saying. So yeah, right? It's hard. I totally get it. I feel like I'm very frugal, and it pains me intensely to purchase something when I know that there is an equivalent in my mind product for less. It is very difficult for me to do. But just saying. Luckily, my orchard is made such that a half bushel of apples, which is about 25 pounds, is as long as I pick a bushel, which we always do, is $16. So it works out to be less than a grocery store apple at most times. So I can feel like, oh, okay. But it is hard when you can see this is more expensive than this, and it's in my mind the same thing. It is difficult, so I understand. Moving on. Oh, she also asked about contributing to the podcast via Patreon or PayPal. Do whatever you'd like. Whatever's convenient to you is super wonderful for me. If you do contribute to multiple podcasts, and you contribute, I would say maybe $3 or less to either or both, or you know what I mean, then Patreon might be a good option. What they do is Patreon does take a cut of your contribution, but If you are contributing to multiple producers, so if you're supporting me, for example, and the Knit Girls, they will split the PayPal fees between the two of us. So if you are, because PayPal charges something like 35 cents, I want to say, plus 3.5%, and that is a guess. So I guess if it's less than $10 then, or $8. So they split that 35 cents between the two of us, so it's helpful. Okay. If folks are contributing, again, $1 or $2, again, less, I would say maybe less than $7-ish, it is helpful to go through Patreon because they help with that. Okay. R.Y. Crafty comments that, she talks about that, again, that they, she regularly cans without using a water bath. Lots of people do. I just didn't even know it was an option. Folks said that when their mothers or whatever were canning pickles, they would just pour the hot brine in and flip and put the jar on, the lid on, and then flip it over so that puts the heat right against the seal, and that was enough to, if you've never canned before, like if you're using ball jars, you hear a ping that indicates that the seal has been made. It's just like when you buy jam from a grocery store, there's like a kind of like a button on the top, and if you push that and it pushes in, you know that jar's been opened. It's that same premise thing, something. So, she just warms her lids, which I do think would be especially important. I don't always warm my lids, especially when I'm putting them in a hot water bath. I'm like, they're aluminum. They're going to get hot in like 2 seconds. I'm terrible. Not recommending you do it, but that's what I do. And so that's what she does. And then Chava's daughter also doesn't recommend. She brought, I said, I've never heard of this. She talks about she had recently found a website, which I will put in the show notes. Oh my goodness, please help me remember. I don't just yell at me. Show notes. There's a method for oven canning dry goods, which I had never heard of. So this one is a blog post about, basically, again, read the post. This is just what I took away after reading it this morning. Dry goods in like a quart jar with like a ball lid on it. You put it in the oven at 200 degrees for about an hour, I think it said. And then she used when she brings it out, or maybe she doesn't even put the jar lid on it. Oh, maybe that's right. Read the stinking post. But it's a fascinating, she uses the oven and she says that, estimate that the dry goods are good for 20 to 30 years because they're safe from rodents, they're safe from moisture, they're safe from microbes. I totally believe it. They've found like grain in ancient Egyptian grain in caves, and come on, this stuff lasts forever. Especially if it's in a moisture controlled environment. It's fascinating. I love it. Yay! Preppers go crazy. Okay, so I think that's it from the boards. Yay! Thanks everybody for typing in. You're awesome, and your faces are gorgeous. Okay. Now let's get into the knitting. Yo. Oh shoot, there's one more thing. It's not a shoot, it's actually a good thing. One more thing. I have a very brief review to do. So, Deborah Robson of Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook fame. So, you need that, basically. You don't need it. But you should at least check out from the library. And then you're going to need it. And then you're going to learn to spin. And then you'll be like, what happened? That's what happened to me. I know, right? Has started to offer some independent sheep modules. That's not what they're called. But she has several available. You can purchase them either as a PDF version or a print and PDF combo. I don't know what the print version looks like, but they are the same price for either. So when you buy the print version, you automatically get a PDF, from what I understand. So I will put that information in the show notes as well. But I was given one to review, and that was at no charge. So this is, take everything with a grain of salt. I will tell you the truth either way, but just in case. It was sent to me at no charge. So you can find more. You can find more information about them at independentstitch.com/fiber guidebooks. There's a dash between fiber and guidebooks. So here we go. So the one I received was the Caracal, which what I basically did was look at the information that was available in the Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook, just as a basic thing. The Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook has 4 pages. 2 of them are pretty information laden. One of them is more picture heavy. And then this independent module has 8 pages, and they're 8 by 8s. So they're square, 8 by 8 pages. And I think they said that so far the modules run from 8 to 12 pages. But basically it just gives you a further, more in-depth view of the sheep. It is more about the sheep, its history, and things like that. It does have information on the fiber. It has the basic, staple length, fiber diameters, lock characteristics. It has, it has a picture of locks. It talks about the colors, but I would think the reason for purchasing this additional module was because you wanted more information about the breed, its history, its origins, and its conservation status, things like that. Because I think that's where these would shine. They're also very gorgeous. They're beautiful, very picture-laden, lovely colors. There is an entire page of resources that have been referenced, so there's great additional information that you can find through the bibliography. And it also has web resources about the Crackle Sheep Registry. So yeah, I found it to be very interesting. There are, I think she said, 4 different sheep breeds available. There are alpaca breeds available. There is also additional information about just general wool information and pilling and things like that, fiber characteristics, as available as separate modules. This one, the thing that I found most interesting about this specific sheep breed is that it talks about, what is it called? There is a phenomenon in Afghanistan specifically is what is mentioned, but the region where this sheep, when it is born and in utero, has a very different fleece characteristic than it does, I think they said 2 days after birth. So the uterine, the fetal sheep and the very newborn sheep, their locks are very tight and very shiny, and they can be black or red, which the adult sheep is not. And so historically, some of the, for example, if a sheep spontaneously aborts, or there is an issue with the birth and the lamb no longer is not viable or cannot survive, the animal was processed for its fleece, not shaved, but was used for its fleece. And they actually don't talk about whether they used the leather attached. I imagine that they do. So used for its hide, not just its fleece. What do we call that when we use the actual leather with the hair attached? I don't know. So that was historically a way for the shepherd to recoup those costs of that lamb, and again, to make use of a product that was going to go to waste anyway. But there have been changes in that, and that has become a fashion item, that fetal fleece. And so what has been happening is that either the mother sheep is killed closer to her term to essentially reap the fetal sheep, or the sheep are killed instantly as newborns to reap that fleece. And she talks, again, she acknowledges that this is a complicated situation, but she does talk about, again, what the motivations would be for folks to do that, especially in regions where economic issues are so much more complicated and made more complicated by sanctions and war. And it's not, I don't feel like she takes a political stance for it. It's more just like a presenting of this information. So that was fascinating. I'd never heard of that. Very interesting. So I've not seen the other ones, but there are other ones available. You can find that information on her website. The prices for them do range from $8 to $12. And so initially I thought, ooh, that's a lot. But upon further reflection, I thought, because I think about it for this entire book is $35. But certainly, if you have a specific interest in a breed or variety, that would be a great way to find out more information. They are beautifully produced. Oh, and again, that's what I was trying to say. We do, I regularly pay $7 for a knitting pattern and don't really think twice about it. So it does seem to be, it's comparable to that price point. So I think it's just sometimes we get, again, going back to earlier, like all of our, some of our end consumer pricing is confusing because we don't see all that goes into it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually have no idea what it's like to try to produce secure, non-reproducible PDF content. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason that the Kindle book is almost as expensive as the paperback. And that's because of the security and production device. So, I don't know. I don't understand those things. So sometimes the price is like, why is that? But it does, again, when you think about it in terms of like what we pay for patterns and that, it does seem comparable. So you can find more information on their website. Check it out. I thought it was very interesting. Okay, now moving on to knitting. See, that was good. It was just for a few minutes. Okay. So I have a sad. Here is my Monte Rosa cardigan. Ta-da! I think I already showed it to you. I just haven't put the zipper in. Okay, so I found this new way to, well, it's not new, but a new to me, way to insert a zipper. So typically I have sewn down all of my zippers, pinned them in, sewn them down, either with a machine. Yeah, I've done a Tova one with a machine, or by hand. But I found information about using this little tool that's called a knit picker. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. And basically what it is this tiny, oh, come on, camera, work with me. It's not going to. It's a teensy tiny latch hook, okay? It's a hook with a little doodad on the end. Does that help if I put it on my head? No, you just see all of my wrinkles and bad skin. Okay. That was worth a try. This one is made by Dritz, however you say that. I think it's like $3-ish. Originally, it is made to fix commercially produced wovens and knits. So you see, it's very tiny. And if you get a snag in a shirt, like a t-shirt or a sweater, it's so tiny that you can put it through the fiber or put it through the cloth, catch the snag or whatever, close the latch hook and pull it back through. Okay? You can also, but because wool is so awesome, you can actually put, the person whose video I watched said you can put up to a chunky weight. I used a worsted weight and it worked fine. It will accept up to a worsted weight thread, yarn, whatever. So, okay, whatever. You can use this little dude to pick up yarn stitches. So you can actually pick up live stitches or you can bind them off as you go. You just stick it through the zipper tape. Catch your yarn. Do I have any yarn I could catch? I do. Da-da-da. Whatever, I don't even need it in, it's fine. You put the little yarn into the latch hook, you close the little latch over it, and you pull it through. Bam! You can take your knitting needle, that for whatever size you're using, and just tighten it down onto your knitting needle, and then do it again. And so you can either have those stitches remain as live, or you can bind them off as you go. If you bind them off as you go, it creates just like what your bind-off edge looks like, and you can use that to mattress stitch on to the edge of a garment. If you use live stitches, you can either use a 3-needle bind off to join them, or you can use like an I-cord. You can make a I-cord seam, right, where you have your I-cord stitches, 3 I-cord stitches, and you're joining 2 fabrics together. If you don't know what that is, you can just Google I-cord seam, I think, and find something. It's basically an applied I-cord times 2. Here's applying on either end of it. It's really throwing me off that I can't find that sample, y'all. I can't let it go. But anyway, I did like a whole, I videoed the whole thing to show you how I was going to do it. I made that sample that I briefly accidentally showed you when I was cutting off the end of the zipper to see what the 3 needle bind off would look like, to see what the I-cord seam would look like, and to make sure, like the video I watched said that you should measure your row gauge, and then basically, in my case, my row gauge indicated that each row was 4.3 millimeters long. So I picked up a stitch every, it was like 4.3. So I picked up at 4 millimeters, at 8 millimeters, and then 12.9, so 13. So you know what I mean? Like, so on the average of 4.3 millimeters. Or you could like block off it, like if you have, you know, you have 20 rows for every 4 inches, block off 4 inches, and then just make sure you're picking up 20 stitches relatively evenly across those. So I did the video and everything, and the sample worked out really well. I was like, oh, this is such a fun way to do this, especially if you don't have a sewing machine, or you don't like to sew, or you don't, hand sewing freaks you out. But I have a sad. I have a sad and a happy. Like, I think I know how to fix. I think I know what I'm going to do it differently. But zipper's in. That's a good thing, right? So this is what it looks like. This is the edge you get if you do the 3 needle bind off, which I like. It's like a nice firm I-cordish edge. But here's the sad. Okay, so you're like, okay, but yeah, this right here, this means that my zipper tape is too long for my sweater. Now, really, I'm exaggerating it because I have not pulled my sweater down at all. It's probably my zipper is probably about 2 inches too long for my sweater. This sweater is slightly more complicated. I measured my row gauge off of this section. This section is garter, okay? So maybe I should have split the difference between the two when I was doing my pickup. I'm not sure. But essentially, I need to take this zipper out, which hurts my heart because it actually took a very long time. This process is time consuming because, as you can imagine, you have to pick up live stitches along the zipper. Well, you have to measure out where you're going to pick up the stitches on the zipper tape. Then you have to pick up all the stitches on the zipper tape. Then you have to pick up the stitches along the side of your fabric, and then you have to join them together. So it is a time-consuming process that unfortunately did not work out. And I've had other people say they've done it and it's been fine. So, and again, the sample I made didn't seem like it was going to be a problem. But again, it was not the biggest sample. But really, in my defense, even if I had done a sample this big, I don't think I would have had this problem. I think it is only, again, 2 inches over what? A 30-inch zipper is not that crazy. And it would still be doable. Like, it's not like it looks crazy. It just looks a little, like I just exaggerated it. It just basically aligns with the outermost part of my bust. Does that make sense? I think other than that, it would not even be new. So it's not like I would have to dig out and redo it, but I think I will. So I was all planning on doing the triumphant C and then posting that tutorial, but now I have to rethink my situation. But I think what I'm going to do this time is sadly take out the zipper, and then I think what I will do is pin it into place. So pin it in, try it on, make sure it looks good, and then I think what I will do is I think I'm still going to try this knit picker because I think it's important, again, especially if folks are afraid of or don't like the thought of sewing their hand knits. I'm going to use this. I'm going to put, why did I put that zipper away, yo? I'm going to put the zipper down. I'm going to put the edge of the knitting on top of it, and then I'm going to go through both of them. So I'll only be picking up one time instead of two. And then I will either bind off as I go. We'll figure it out. That I have to decide yet. But I think that's what I'm going to do. That gives you the benefit of pinning it into place to make sure that it is actually going to look right. But you still don't have to use a sewing machine or sew anything. But I will probably tack down the edge of the zipper tape, but you don't have to. But you can if you want to. So, that's what I'm thinking. Somebody asked me if I felt like I needed to use reinforcing thread. I don't think so. I mean, it's, maybe if I was using like a single ply yarn, I would be concerned about it. But it's very it feels very securely mounted in there. And again, the zipper doesn't get that much stress. It's not like a button where there's one stress point or, 7 stress points. The stress is distributed evenly over this entire length, so there's less pressure on any one place. So I don't think it needs reinforcing thread, but that was a good question. So yeah, I think I'm gonna try it again. So if you were wondering where that tutorial is and why it's not out there yet, that's why. I did all of the trouble of filming it. Now I have to redo it. I'll probably I will probably include the information on how to do it the way I did it, just with the caveat of, at your own risk. Or again, on a smaller knit, or I thought it might even work better if I had, instead of doing a strict row gauge, instead of being like really intense on the row gauge, maybe if I had, well, I don't know. I thought about doing it like you would pick up like you would normally pick up for a band. That might help just because, no, it wouldn't, because the tape itself is still going to be the same length, whether the stitches on top of it are that length or not. And again, if you're paying attention to the actual row gauge, it's going to be that. So again, I do think that it was exacerbated or accentuated by the fact that the sweater has ribbing or has garter stitch for the sides, because I think the panel kind of, like normally when you would knit a stockinette sweater, for example, the row gauge would be consistent through the whole bottom, so it would, or through the whole length, versus when you have two different textures happening, the garter kind of naturally pulls the stockinette up. So I think their row gauge kind of meets in the middle, and so I just think that made it I think if it was just straight stockinette, it would have evened out more than with the two combined. So I don't know, because again, if I actually pull the sweater down, then it works. The zipper length works. But as I would walk through the day, I think it would pull up and be funny. So I'm going to take it out and take about 2 inches out of the zipper, and redo it. So we'll see what that is. I do have a finished object though. I finished, did I just see an end? No, I didn't. I finished some socks. This is yarn by the amazing, talented Lollipop Yarns. This is her Friendship colorway. And her Gripe Space, 80/20 superwash merino nylon, 410 yards for every 100 grams. So Lollipop. She always does an amazing job. This one had a main color and then a heels and toes. So I just did heels and cuffs in this. And isn't it gorgeous? So beautiful. Afterthought heel. Pretty much Laura Lena Mini. I add a few extra rows if I've knit my sock and I realize that I've made it a little too short. I'll add a few extra rows in here because it gives you a little bit more room in your arch and in your length before I start decreasing for the heel. And I don't decrease as far for the heel because I have box feet. Like my heels are pretty square as they are. So there's that. Then I also have my Ninilchik Swancho, which is going quite well. I am to the bottom. I'm done with the color work. So the solid color is Cascade 220's Heather. I don't have the color, but the show notes will have all the colorway names if you want them. I think I did actually make a Ravelry project page, so you can check there as well. The contrast colors are all Woolen Rabbits Emma base which is a polar silk beige, which is very nice. I very much enjoyed knitting with this. This is the Birch Beer colorway, I'm pretty sure. I'd lost the tag, but looking at their website, I think this is the Birch Beer colorway. This is the, I think, Tiger Lily. And then this one is Butterscotch. Because butterscotch, yo. Isn't that fun? It's really fun to knit. And then you get to like the plain part, and I've struggled. Like this part seemed to kind of just fly. Because again, it's color work and you're, oh, I just gotta get to that end of that section. Oh, I'll just get to the end of that section. And that kind of thing. Even when it got really big, because again, with it being a poncho, it goes around my entire circumference. Sorry about that, an SD card. And we're out of power. A memory. Okay, so. Oh, so even though, you have stitches going around for me, my entire circumference, now I am on the larger end of the sizes. It's like extra small through large and then 1X to 3X or something like that. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. Did I say this is by Caitlin Hunter? I did not. Sorry. So even though you got all those stitches, it's still fun because again, there's very short rows, or, column. There's not very many rows in a repeat. And it just, propels you forward. And then you get to the bottom. I thought, I just gotta get to the bottom and then it'll just be done. But it's not. Somehow doing the bottom, even though I've taken off my sleeve stitches, which is for my size, like 140 stitches, I think. Even though I've taken those off, I'm still like, so sloggy. This 5 inches I have to do plain stockinette. It's worsted weight. Whatever. Isn't it fun? So I highly recommend it. It's very fun. I have no idea what it's going to look like on my person, but it's enjoyable to knit. And I feel like I want to make another one pretty soon. Just saying. So there's that. And then the last thing I have to show you, I know, right? Thank goodness, is I have started the Busta Beanie by Gudrid Johnson, which is a free pattern. It's from Shetland Wool Week. And now I can't remember. I can't remember what year it was. But anyway, it's Busta Beanie. It's a recent one. So it's not free on Ravelry. You have to go to the Shetland Wool Week website, and I think you have to register or something like that. But, dude, it's worth it. Because you can get that sheepy hat from a while ago. I'm knitting mine with Swans Island Sport Weight. So, here it is so far. How fun is that? So the pattern is written for fingering weight, but I have a giant head. And this sport weight is not particularly beefy or anything. My gauge was a little bit bigger, but that's good because, again, I have a giant head and I don't like a tight hat. This is definitely a beanie style. It's called a beanie. I will be making mine longer and more slouchy. The colors I am using are Ocean. I think that's the darker blue, but I could be wrong. Poppy, which is the orange. And Ice, which is the light blue, I believe. I am knitting mine on US 3s, 2s. 2s. Here it is so far. Right. Isn't it super cutie? So I can't decide if I'm going to do, I don't know, because when I block it, I'll probably block it wider. So I think I'll do at least another couple before I start the crown. I am getting a little bit nervous about my blue yarn. These are 50-gram balls, by the way, and the length is 185 yards. By the way, I dig this yarn. I have made a shawl with it as a contrast color. Ugh. Right? Is that not the best color ever? It's a solid. I love it. It is a little spendy. It's $12.50 a ball at my yarn store. But my yarn store actually had it, and I was like, oh dude, I'm going to support you having this yarn, yo, because I want you to have more of it. It is, I love it. It is so squidgy, and it's perfect because it feels, and again, I don't know how this yarn is spun. It's Rambouillet, carded and spun at one of the oldest woolen mills in New England. So I'm going to guess that that's Harrisville, which means it probably is Woolen Spun. I would not normally just think it was, but I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure it is. It is, but it is super next to skin okay for me. Now, if you're made of butter, it might be abrasive, I don't know. But I dig it. Like, I have a little bit of trouble with Harrisville's traditional, like their Shetland Highland next to skin. Their Watershed, I don't have that trouble with. I shouldn't say that definitively because I don't know that I've ever made a hat with. I'm very much more sensitive to hat than sweater because usually with a sweater I'm going to wear something under it. But hat, because I like to wear a hat all day, not just for an hour or two. If it has, I'm going to feel itchy here if it's not softer. So the Shetland, Harrisville, Shetland, and Highland, I think are their two traditional older yarns. They're a little bit scratchier for me to wear as a hat. As a garment, perfect. As a shawl, even, they would be perfect. But for something that's going to be snug or pressed against my skin, and it's a sweating point anyway, not good for that, for me. But like their Watershed, which is a softer, which is more reminiscent of like a, it's sort of like between between the Shetland Highland and like a Brooklyn tweed yarn. What's that called? Loft Shelter. So it's like in between there. Like that, definitely, I feel like I could do skinned, no problem. Okay? Like Peace Fleece. I don't want a hat made out of Peace Fleece, really. I have one, and I'll wear it out. It's a worsted weight one. So when I'm wearing that one, I'm probably just wearing it outside, and that's fine. But like a sport weight hat or a fingering weight hat, even a DK hat, I will actually wear inside all day, and I don't like them to be too scratchy. Is that a lot of information for you? You're like, shut up. This podcast is already long enough. I know, I'm sorry. I just like yarn. But so I do really dig it. It's squidgy and fun and good. And again, it's a little pricey. But of course, Rambouillet. Come on. It's amazing, Rambouillet. It does this a lot. And as you can see, this has not been blocked or steam blocked or anything. It has great definition. Which is something like if you're going to do a worsted spun, like a Quince & Company or something like that. Sometimes you get like a more distinct line, so there is, I don't know how, it just doesn't feel like it's as cohesive in color work. And I've done lots of worsted spun, and by the way, if you're asking about the worsted woolen spun, I was busy doing that stupid zipper tutorial, but I'll get to it. There's a lot on my plate right now. But what did I say? Oh, so it feels like the woolen spuns often kind of become more cohesive in color work than your worsted spuns. Did I just say that wrong? I'm not a professional. But they feel like they marry together better, and I do think they have a softer line between colors. It's not as sharp as it is if you use like a worsted spun yarn like a Quince & Company or a Cascade 220, or you know what I mean, like that line seems sharper, but that's not always what I want. It also seems like it shows imperfections slightly more than a woolen spun, which kind of just seems to groove together over time. So they groove together, people. I'm getting so frou-frou as I get older. It's out of control. Any minute I'm going to be offering tarot card readings. It's going to be crazy. And that's not even really a joke. Kind of, but probably not. So I really dig it. It's fun to knit. I enjoy the texture. This is a great colorwork pattern if you are new to colorwork. You don't have to catch any floats because your longest color section is only 3 stitches. So you don't have to worry about catching any floats, which is wonderful. Because you have one solid background color, you only have to change your contrast color. So that is nice as well. You don't have as many ends to weave in or manage or whatever. You definitely could carry all 3 yarns at the side. I'm not, just because I just get like, everything's too tangled and it stresses me out. I'd rather weave in ends. But you certainly could, because they're only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're only 7 rows high. You could definitely catch that third color that you're not using. You know, just catch it every other row or something up the side, and you wouldn't even have to have any ends to weave in. So I definitely recommend it, and it's free. Yay! right? Now I'm gonna wear it all the time. It's not done yet though, but whatever. We pretend. Just go with it. That's like a really fancy pom-pom. Tie tassel too. Whatever. Okay. That is stinking enough for this week, right? Oh, yay. I have to go back to every week. What's happening? Anyway, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.